Can we use science to prove or disprove the existence of God? This is a question of immense weight. It stands at the crossroads of faith and reason. Many people believe science and God are entirely separate realms. They see science as the domain of facts, matter, energy. They see God as the domain of faith, spirit, meaning. But what if we challenge this separation? What if we treat the question of God's existence as a scientific question? To do this, we must first understand our terms. The first step in any scientific inquiry is to ask a clear and precise question. A vague question leads to a vague answer. The question, does God exist, is too broad. It is like asking, is there stuff? We need to refine it. A better question is, does an intelligent, non-physical creator who can intervene in the universe exist? This reframing is crucial. It moves the idea from philosophy to something with potentially observable consequences. It focuses on a specific type of God, common to many theistic traditions. This version of God is not an abstract force, not a state of mind. It is a purposeful agent. This question immediately sets boundaries for investigation. We are not asking about personal feelings from prayer. We are not asking about the moral value of religious texts. Once we have a clear question, the next step is to formulate a testable hypothesis. A hypothesis is a proposed explanation for a phenomenon. For a hypothesis to be scientific, it must be falsifiable. It means there must be some possible observation or experiment that could prove the hypothesis wrong. If a hypothesis cannot be proven wrong, it is not scientific. For example, there are invisible, undetectable elves living in my garden. There is no way to disprove that. Any failed attempt could be explained away. They're just too good at hiding. So, let's formulate a testable hypothesis about God. Based on our question, here's a strong candidate. The fine-tuning of the universe's physical constants, the complex, specified information in biological DNA, are the result of an intelligent designer. This hypothesis is specific. It points to two distinct areas for investigation: the laws of physics, the building blocks of life. Section 4. Step 3. The third step is to design an experiment or a set of observations to test our hypothesis. For a question as big as the existence of God, we cannot run a controlled experiment in a laboratory. We cannot create a second universe without a God to use as a control group. However, science is not limited to laboratory experiments. Fields like cosmology, geology, evolutionary biology rely on observing the present state of the world to infer past events. Our experiment, therefore, will be an observational one. We will examine the universe and the life within it for the fingerprints of design that our hypothesis predicts. Let's focus on one part of our hypothesis: the fine-tuning of the universe. This refers to the observation that many fundamental constants of physics, like the strength of gravity or the mass of an electron. Section 5. Step 4. After conducting our observations, we must analyze the results. This step involves looking at the data we have collected and determining what it tells us about our hypothesis. In our observational experiment on fine-tuning, the data consists of the measured values of physical constants and the calculated probabilities of these values occurring by chance. The analysis requires us to compare two competing explanations: intelligent design, random chance. What would the results look like for each? This is the core of the analytical process, where we weigh the evidence for and against our hypothesis. If our hypothesis is correct, we would expect the results to show that the conditions for life are wildly improbable. We would find that the number of constants that need to be precisely set is large, and the range for each is incredibly small. The combined probability of all these cosmic coincidences happening by chance would be infinitesimally low. Section 6. Step 5. The final step is interpretation. What does our analysis mean? This is where we step back and draw a conclusion based on the evidence. Given that our analysis of fine-tuning points to a highly improbable setup for the universe, how should we interpret this? One interpretation is that we are the beneficiaries of an unimaginably unlikely cosmic lottery. We won against all odds. This is a possible conclusion, but it is one that many find intellectually unsatisfying. It essentially explains the data by appealing to luck. A second interpretation is to accept the hypothesis that seems to fit the data more directly. The fine-tuning is the result of a purposeful, intelligent cause. This is an inference to the best explanation. It is the same kind of reasoning a detective uses to conclude that. This interpretation posits that the universe is the way it is because it was intended to be. Section 7. Conclusion. So, can science tell us if God exists? The honest answer is that it cannot give us a final, absolute yes or no that will end all debate. Science is a process, not an oracle. It deals in probabilities and evidence, not in absolute proof. The scientific method does not allow us to put God in a test tube. However, it does allow us to examine the world for evidence that is consistent or inconsistent with the existence of a creator. Let's proceed. Practical takeaway. Apply the scientific method to your own big questions. Do not be afraid to ask a clear question. Formulate a testable hypothesis about the world. Look for evidence, real, observable evidence, that would support your idea, that would refute your idea. Analyze what you find with an open mind. Be willing to draw a conclusion, even a provisional one, based on that evidence. This method is the most powerful tool humanity has ever developed for cutting through bias and discovering truth. Examining the cosmos, examining your own deeply held beliefs, this structured approach can bring clarity, reason, and intellectual honesty to your journey. Observations like the fine-tuning of the universe provide data that can be analyzed within a scientific framework. Therefore, concluding that the universe was designed is a rational inference based on the available data. It is not an act of blind faith. It is a conclusion that follows the evidence where it leads, even if that destination is unexpected. The universe is not silent. It is filled with data. The scientific method is the language we use to read that data. Data points to a designer or to an incredible stroke of luck. You are engaging in a rational process of inquiry. This is a far more robust approach than simply inheriting a belief or rejecting one without examination. Well, that's where we begin.